Welcome to Gallery 5 Schenectady Artist Talk series. And this is artist number 5, Tom Pink. And take it away.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for Gallery 5 for having my art up here. My name is Tom Pink, and I've been painting in oils for a long time. I was mostly self-taught. I never went to school for art and was really struggling with a lot of compositional stuff, and a lot of the paintings I was doing a few years ago, I would waste a lot of time repainting sections of them, and really just, a lot of wasted time trying to get the composition right. And I did a mentorship last year with a really talented painter, Martin Whitfuth, and he kind of, blew my mind with a lot of conceptual stuff I never learned. And so my goal is basically to relearn how to oil paint, and these 3 paintings are a step in that process. I realized that we have hundreds of years of the great masters who learned through trial and error how to paint things realistically, and if I want to paint things realistically, I have to learn what they did as a stepping stone to doing my own creative process. So I'm set on a goal to make a bunch of realistic paintings, over the next couple of years, and these are all a step in that process. So I did these flowers last fall, and these oranges just the other month I finished them. And the process is pretty lengthy. I start with photo references I take myself, and then I edit them in Procreate, so I tweak the lighting and the composition. And then I use those images as like a photo reference for the actual painting. And so these paintings, I start with a raw umber background, so it's just a brown underpainting. The whole image is done in one color, and then over that I do layers of color. So I start with just the background color, and then, so for instance, this one I did a layer of green, and then I did the orange itself, and that was a bunch of layers of different oranges and white. The final layer is the whites. I usually don't do white until the end, because I'm using translucent colors, so the colors, you can see like the green background through the orange in some of these areas, which make it look more realistic because oranges are somewhat translucent. So you're gonna see that green through the orange. Little things like that I would have never thought of last year, and really trying to pay attention to those details. And another thing I started using was lead white. So lead white is a pure white, like unlike titanium, which is like a blue tinted white. Using lead white in a warm picture, it looks more realistic because that white is not tinted blue. And so these are probably about 4 or 5 layers of orange and white here, like built on the background. I've also been trying to go really thin, translucent layers instead of trying to pile all the paint on in one layer. It gives it more of a realistic look. And yeah, that's about it. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I noticed in your backgrounds they're stark,
Mm-hmm.
but there's really nice shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
they work pretty well.
Yeah, they're very plain. I'm not good at doing background, like detailed backgrounds, so I do want to work on that, actually, getting more detail in the background. But for now, I like to do like a plain color in the shadow. I've been doing these really soft shadows. You can't even really see the line. There's really not even a line between the shadow and the rest of the background, but it's like just enough to make the image pop, basically. Yeah, the shadows are something I've been working on.
So this last year, under your mentor, is there one particular aspect of his teaching that really caught you?
That's a good question. There were many. I think the most important was, I think there were two, and one of them was how much he plans out his compositions before he starts painting, which I didn't do as much, and taking his own photo references. I used to struggle to, Google all the images I wanted to use, but ever since I started painting for my own photos, that's also, I think, improved my work.
That's a big step.
So painting from your own photos, planning out the work, but also just, focusing on making things look realistic by this layering process with the underpainting and the translucent layers, like paying attention to what paint's translucent, semi-translucent, and opaque.
And you said these are oil.
Yeah.
So do you use a grayscale with your color palette, like white and then 5 shades of gray and black?
No,
So you get all these little
I don't
nuances?
do that.
No?
That I have seen that. I haven't done that. It looks organized. I'm
It's
not that organized.
And you realize how many different shadows are
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah,
different
my
colors.
palette is like a neutral gray, so that kind of helps me differentiate between, like, having a neutral gray palette, like glass palette itself helps, like, differentiate how light and dark the paint is. So that's
Good, yeah.
something.
That's an observation. No,
Yeah,
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, good question.
All good? Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you so much.